So yesterday I went and saw the new Sam Raimi horror movie survival thriller called Send Help, starring Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien. Let's get into it. So the movie follows Rachel McAdams playing Linda Little, who works in a toxic corporate environment, and after the recent CEO dies, his son Bradley takes over. Just from when they meet, it's a toxic work relationship. Bradley brings Linda on a trip, but they don't get to the destination because the plane crashes. Him and Linda are the only survivors. And so now they have to figure out how to survive on this island alone. And it's played in a darkly comedic way, but there's also some really good serious moments between the two. Their dynamic in this movie is the beating heart of Send Help. There's a lot of simmering tension rooted in ambition, resentment, and also there's a few buried personal betrayals that we learn about along the way. And the way Sam Raimi structures the story, it's almost like a trapdoor. The way that it pulls the rug from under you, where the first act is almost like a sitcom-ish office environment before sending you into the physical and psychological trials of being stuck on an island with the person that you resent the most within your daily life and routine. And the island sequences are a mix of genuine terror and fear, and then deranged humor with the terrain that they have, the tools that they improvise, and the weapons that they improvise, and just a series of increasingly unhinged attempts to work together. Yeah, that just repeatedly keeps collapsing into them butting heads, and it's just a lot of fun throughout this movie. And Rachel McAdams as Linda, it reminds me a lot, if you've seen Yellow Jackets, you'll know what I'm talking about, but it reminds me a lot of Misty from Yellow Jackets. She really embodies a character like that. And then Dylan O'Brien, I was trying to think, who would Dylan O'Brien be, his character, who would he be in Yellow Jackets? And he would be Jeff. So it's kind of you get Misty and Jeff from Yellow Jackets and put them on an island together. And this is what this movie is. And it's just hilarious. Because as the characters adapt, the film becomes less about escaping the island and more about what the island awakens within themselves. And Raimi uses these tonal shifts where it's one moment slapstick absurd comedy, and then the next it's stomach turning and makes you go ugh. There's some visuals in this movie where you can definitely tell Sam Raimi used his little signature style and flair to show you that this movie isn't just a survival thriller. There's some horror elements. There's a lot of absurd comedy, and then the final act just twists this premise, and the way that they reframe it by the end I thought was genius, and I did not expect that out of this movie, because the film's central idea is that stripping away of societal structures where it doesn't just expose those primal instincts, it releases them onto these two, and so the hierarchies that they have, since Bradley, who's Dylan O'Brien's character, is Linda's boss, and so there's no hierarchies anymore, and if there is, they kind of switch, and because new ones form, and in these situations, usually more volatile. Rachel McAdams' character, she discovers these feral instincts that were impossible to have within a corporate environment. And the early office scenes that we get, they don't just end after the first act. They echo throughout the whole movie. The way that the island is kind of a metaphor for how in the office space it kind of feels like survival, with how toxic it can be, and especially with how kind of misogynistic Bradley's character is and the other men in the environment. And so the island kind of becomes a grotesque metaphor for the corporate culture, with competition, manipulation, and performative teamwork, but just now with literal life or death stakes. And so Raimi kind of makes you ask whether the brutality of the wild isn't so different from the brutality of a boardroom or an office space. And the film repeatedly asks whether extreme conditions reveal a person's true self or simply make a new personality, where both of our leads undergo transformations that blur the line between empowerment and moral decay, and their shifting dynamic sometimes allies them while sometimes they're adversaries, and that shifting dynamic just embodies a thematic tension throughout the movie. And yeah, Rachel McAdams delivers a performance that I think is one of her best performances yet. I've only seen her in only other things I've seen her in are like the Doctor Strange movies and Mean Girls. And I think her performance in this might be better than her performance as Virginia George. And I hope we see a resurgence of Rachel McAdams in other projects because she was incredible in this. She moved seamlessly through like the deadpan comedy and then to like raw animalistic her physicality throughout this movie while being soaked in blood, being soaked in mud, just coming out like terrifying at some moments. It's just matched really well with these moments of quiet vulnerability that we get as well that make her arc in this movie feel earned rather than just like a gimmick. And like she comes out as like an icon. Like I feel like her character is gonna be really iconic. Linda Little is going to be one of those like final girl like icons. And then Dylan O'Brien, he plays this perfect counterweight where he's anxious, self-absorbed, and he is unexpectedly resourceful at some point. His comedic instincts, which I've first discovered Dylan O'Brien with Teen Wolf voice styles, if you know, and then also Styles is just one of my favorite characters across like movies and TV. I just really see a lot of that character within myself. His comedic instincts keep the film alive, and even in the movie's darkest moments, his chemistry with Rachel McAdams gives the story these emotional stakes that are beyond the survival plot. And again, their push-pull dynamic is the film's beating heart and what makes this movie thrive so well. So yeah, if I had to give this movie a rating, I'd probably give it a 9 out of 10, an A+ on my scale. Yeah, this movie was just amazing. Like going into it, I had high hopes, but I wasn't sure if like the comedy was going to be for me since I'm someone who wasn't a fan of Evil Dead 2. I know it's just I didn't like the slapstick humor and how it was used in that movie, but in this movie, the way it's balanced with like serious moments, I thought was a lot better and really well done. If you've seen Ten Hub, let me know what you think about it down below. If you like it, if you didn't like it, I would like to hear your thoughts down below. Don't forget to like and follow.